Thank you so much to everyone who came out today. First off, I just want to say, we did it! Woo! I have a lot of thank yous. I know I'm going to miss some people, but I'm going to just try to hit a few of the highlights. First, I would like to thank Gail and Lauren Ingalls, who are the owners of North Guana Outpost here, who are hosting us and have been so wonderful to us. Thank you. Also, a big thank you to the Audubon, Florida, under the direction of Julie Rathmel, the executive director, who alerted us Wednesday night, or this might have been an entirely different scenario tomorrow. We'll be hearing from Chris Farrell, our Northeast Florida director for Audubon, Florida, here in a minute. We're going to take turns, everyone speaking, but I just want to hit some of the thank yous first. And first and foremost, I just want to thank God. God has just continually opened up doors and put people together, and with such a tight time frame, by the grace of God and the heart of this community, we were able to execute something very quickly that needed to be done. I'd also like to recognize a lot of our political colleagues who came in very quickly to help. Obviously, President's Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles.
Amen. Thank you, Susie.
People have come out and made statements, Congressman Rutherford, Congressman Donald, Senator Leak, all of my representatives in the House. If you may have seen it in the press, yes, I did email them at 4:30. All of them sent out an SOS. Didn't matter what side of the aisle they were on, everybody came in to help. They understood, similar to the state park issue, this seems to feel the same, but we're by ourselves, and we really needed the help around the state, and they just really kicked it in hard for us. Very special personal thank you for me to Representative Tant and the former Representative Caldwell, who wrote the original legislation for this land swap. They spent a very long time with me over this weekend educating me in case I had to present tomorrow. Our fellow electeds up here, which you'll be hearing from shortly, one of them is missing. That would be our chair, Commissioner Krista Joseph. She has been working like a dog as well. She got called away for a personal medical emergency. But I just want you to know, she, just like everybody up here, has been working like a dog nonstop trying to prevent this from happening. Also, I'd like to recognize, I don't know if he's here in the crowd today, but Honorable Henry Dean. Most of us know him as a former county commissioner. He was actually the general counsel for the Department of Natural Resources, and he was over the negotiation for this guana back in 1984. So we're sitting on a lot of history and resources right here. Also, I'd like to recognize Jen Lomberg, our Matanzas Riverkeeper, and Dale Ann Viger, who's our Executive Director of GTMR NER. And I'd like to thank our press. We can go on social media, we can text each other, but you guys have quickly amplified our voices. Thank you. And then the most important thing, we're just a handful of people up here. And yes, we care about this community and we've been working like dogs, but we don't have the impact if our community doesn't kick in. And everybody, I have always said, and I'll say it till the day I die, St. Johns County is a big, small town. We have the benefits of a big city, but we have that small town feel, neighbor helping neighbor, and we are family. And Guana is part of that family. And I am so proud to be part of this community because of that. Everybody came together so quickly, and we care so much. Everybody just put everything else to the side to make this a forefront issue. Obviously, a lot of folks here are going to speak to the importance of guana. We all know what it is, but my most important message I want you to understand is I'm not going to let this go. This doesn't end here. First off, let me be clear, this land swap, in my strong opinion, does not fall under the legislation that was passed back in 2016 that addresses land swaps. This should have never been brought before the ARC. It is out of the spirit of the law for land swapping, and it's also against what we unanimously just passed in the House, which was stopping development at state parks. In my opinion, this was a workaround. And I, number one, am committed towards doing legislation. I've already talked to my staff on trying to figure out what we can button up to stop this wraparound, this workaround, find a hole, whatever can be done to try to do this again. We're going to try to button that down as hard as we can, which will also include giving more than 3 business days notice. Also, what this did for me is highlight the fact that we've got an in-holding situation of our 10,000 acres. And though the applicant was interested in the 600 acres, I am very interested in their 104. So I'm already working with the staff in Tallahassee on what my options are. I am fully committed. I have already reached out to the representation for the applicant. I would like to sit down with him. He said in his letter, the applicant remains committed to preserving Florida's natural habitat and supporting the state's conservation efforts. In that regard, we look forward to continued conversations on the preferred method of preserving Florida's conservation lands and how we may contribute to that critical goal. I will let you know what I plan on saying at that meeting. My preferred method is for the state of Florida to purchase their 104 acres and put it back with Guana.
That's right.
So now I'm going to bring up one at a time our mayors and our county commissioners to say a few words each, and then at the end we will open up to any kind of questions. I'm going to start with one of my dear friends, and again one of our great leaders in this community is St. Augustine Mayor Nancy Sykes-Klein.
Thank you, Kim. That was very inspiring. Very inspiring. Thank you. As mayor of the city of St. Augustine, I stand before you today proud of everyone who's made their voice heard. In June of 2017, the city of St. Augustine and the Florida Department of Environmental Protection entered into a memorandum of agreement to incorporate portions of the city's submerged lands as buffer lands within the GTM-NER boundary to provide continuity in science-based management of the reserve coastal resources. This effort was in support of the reserve's mission to preserve, protect, and where possible, to restore or enhance the resources of the nation's coastal zone. And while we, the city of St. Augustine and the surrounding region in St. Johns County, benefit immeasurably from the Guana River WMA as an outstanding and intact coastal ecosystem, we also recognize this area as an invaluable resource for education, research, and responsible outdoor recreation. Not to mention that it's home to several resources of historic and prehistoric significance. And for now, the environmental integrity of one of our state's most ecologically sensitive and irreplaceable natural areas has been spared. We have spoken and we have been heard. We can continue to uphold the mission of preserving this area and protecting the natural wonders. We know our heritage will not be compromised. Thank you for listening. Next is Mayor Dylan Rumrell.
Good morning, everyone. God is good. I'm the mayor of City of St. Augustine Beach, and as a native of Florida, this land means more to me than just what's marked on a map. I grew up fishing the headwaters of Guana River. I paddled those quiet waters, watched the sunsets over in the marsh, and felt the pull of a redfish on my line. It's part of who I am, and it's part of who we are as a community. That's why I'm so relieved and grateful to say the developer has officially pulled their application. The threat to Guana Preserve has been turned back for now. And it didn't happen by accident. It happened because people stood up, because you cared. Neighbors, conservationists, community leaders like Katie Wiles, leaders like Susie Wiles and Byron Donalds, thank you. I also want to thank, yes, please. I also want to thank those who wrote letters, showed up at meetings, and stood in solidarity right there in the corner of Michler and A1A, spreading the word and refusing to let this fight be unnoticed. You remind everyone that this land's not just important, but it's worth protecting. The 600 acres in question weren't just an empty space. That land was set aside for conservation. It's a vital habitat for countless species. It helps protect the waters, wildlife, and our way of life. If we had to let it be developed, we'd have lost the trees, the wetlands, and we'd lose what part of Florida makes this so special. My wife, who's here with me today, has taught children in St. Johns County for over 27 years. She spent her life teaching the next generation to fall in love with nature around them. But what happens if that nature disappears? What's left to teach if we allow park after park to be developed? This isn't the first time our community has stood strong together like this. Just last year, Anastasia State Park was under threat, and St. Johns County Commissioner Sarah Arnold stood by my side. The community rose up and said, "Not here, not our land." I'll never forget that, and I'll always show up and support. Many of you know the book, A Land Remembered. It tells the story of Florida that once was wild, untamed, and full of life. If we're not careful, we'll write the sequel, A Land Forgotten. Let's not let that happen. Let's keep showing up and speaking up. Let's keep protecting what's left and make sure our children don't hear stories about what Florida used to be. We want them to experience it, live it, and love it the way we all have. My pleasure to introduce Vice Chair Clay Murphy.
Thank you so much, Dylan, and honored guest. Thank you so much for having me here. I've just got a few words that I wanted to say because I know there's going to be a lot of wonderful sentiments up here. So let me be brief. It'll only take 3 or 4 hours. We should be out of here in just a minute. Today's call to action is turned into a celebration of what can be accomplished when all people gather together with one voice and say no. When you look at the heart of this ecosystem, Guana, Matanzas, the St. Johns, you quickly realize it must be protected. I take the applicant at their word that their intent was to keep the land in preservation, but what of the next owner or the next? We have been shown how quickly the path of development can start, no matter how long that process would have taken, and we must not let our guard down. And what has been clearly shown is our responsibility to keep watch over. Thank you all for your courage to stand up and be heard. Well done. Thank you. And now I invite Commissioner Sarah Arnold. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. As you can imagine, the statements I had prepared for this morning have changed in light of the news that the application was withdrawn yesterday. So in light of that, I'm simply going to echo some comments that I made last year at a very similar press conference, fighting a very similar initiative and attack on our land, the state parks rollout. Much like last year's project, the Guana land swap was an egregious overreach of state government, a plan that sought no local input whatsoever. And much like that project, this one also seemed like a done deal. And until last year, I'd never seen an issue that so galvanized a community, a region, or an entire state the way that this one did. And yet here we are again. But this time to me, it was personal. My family has for generations, alongside the Payton family, played a part in the conservation of Guana. They fought to preserve it for their children, and today I pledge I will continue to fight to preserve it for mine and for yours. So congratulations, St. Johns County. You rallied, you mobilized, and you stood arm in arm to fight that. And because of that, we won. And in closing, to everyone listening out there, especially in Tallahassee, I hope you are keeping score, because that's 2 out of 2 for St. Johns County. And I would caution anyone about coming for us a third time. Thank you.
My name is Christian Whitehurst. I'm one of the Board of County Commissioners members, and I've been on the board for about the past 5 years. And I have to say, we're living in divisive times, but it is a breath of fresh air to see everybody so unified around sending a central message that our conservation land is off limits. So just a little bit of history. Since I got on the board, within my first 100 days, we reinstated the local conservation fund. It had been dormant for about 15 years prior to 2021. Since that time, we have quadrupled the funding for that conservation fund. We've been working with the Rural and Family Lands Program at the state. We've been working with Live Wildly. We've been working with Florida Forever, all to add more conservation to the land here in St. Johns County. So I think if there's one takeaway for anybody who's looking at conservation land in St. Johns County, we want more, not less, and keep development away from our conservation. So with that, it is my pleasure to introduce Commissioner Ann Taylor.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Wow, what a truly fantastic day for St. Johns County. I'm extremely excited and so incredibly proud of this victory to all of us. The Guana River land swap proposal has been officially withdrawn. This incredible outcome is the direct result of the passion, the dedication, and the unwavering voices of the people of St. Johns County. When our community pulls together, when we stand united with what we believe in, we are an unstoppable force. Your calls, your emails, your presence, your voices, they were heard loud and clear, and they all made a difference. This victory was a huge team effort, and why I want to extend our deepest gratitude to the organizations that were at the forefront of this fight. A huge thank you to the Audubon, Florida, for their sharp eyes in discovering this proposal and their relentless advocacy. Thank you to Save Guana Now for their fierce and passionate grassroots campaign. Thank you to the Florida Wildlife Federation for their powerful statewide voice for conservation. And thank you to the many other dedicated groups and tireless individuals who work day and night. Your collective hard work was inspiring and absolutely crucial. We also saw incredible support from leaders who stood with us against the swap. My sincere appreciation goes to Trump Chief of Staff Susie Wiles and to Congressman John Rutherford for publicly opposing this proposal. Your influential voices were invaluable in protecting our cherished guana. And today we celebrate this hard-won battle, but this experience is also a wake-up call. It's showing us that our public lands, even those like Guana, can be threatened by proposals that lack transparency and attempt to rush through with little public notice. That's why I am so immensely grateful and encouraged that our own state representative, Kim Kendall, is not just celebrating with us, but is already taking decisive action. She's championed new legislation to strengthen protection for our public lands. And she's exploring, as she mentioned, the possibility of acquiring the outpost parcel, which is the very land adjacent to Guana that even made this swap even possible, to ensure that it's permanently secured for conservation and no longer a point for vulnerability for our beloved management area. Representative Kendall, thank you for your incredible foresight and your unwavering commitment to our community and environment. Let this victory today serve as a wake-up call. We must ensure that our public lands are managed with the utmost transparency and that the promise of Forever Wild is truly upheld. Let's continue to work together, support these legislative efforts, and make absolutely sure a situation like this does not happen again. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your dedication, and thank you to St. Johns County. It is my absolute pleasure and honor to introduce Chris Farrell with the Audubon of Florida.
Good morning, everyone. It has been a week. At Audubon, Florida, we've learned that when our executive director, Julie Raithmel, starts emailing, texting, and messaging the entire policy team after hours, it usually means we're going to be headed for a late night and a big problem. That was certainly the case when we saw on the ARC agenda and realized that a 600-acre piece of guana, this fabulous resource for our community, was potentially going to be lost. Within just a few hours, our team went from understanding the situation to launching a petition, publishing social media content, and activating our chapter network across the state. And once the message was out, the response from the people of Florida was incredible. Thousands of you acted within hours, signing, sharing, calling, writing. You stood up to say clearly and powerfully, public conservation land is not a bargaining chip and guana matters. This place is loved, it's used, it's needed, and it's already protected for a reason. And I am very happy to announce that as of last night, our petition had over 50,000 submissions of people saying no to the swap. To everyone who signed a petition, made a phone call, helped spread the word, thank you. This outcome is yours. You showed exactly how strong the public voice can be when the clock is ticking and the values are clear. We all know how special this land is, the rare maritime hammock, its role in protecting water quality in Guana Lake, and its value for wildlife and recreation. This week, we proved that protecting places like Guana isn't just a conservation priority, it's a community priority. And while we're celebrating today, we're also looking ahead. We need to stay vigilant. We need to continue to stand up for Florida's conservation lands and the public trust that keeps them protected. And now I would like to thank someone whose leadership made a huge difference this week. Someone who jumped in immediately and helped amplify the voice of the community with determination and clarity. It is my honor to introduce Guana's representative, Kim Kendall.
Thank you. Again, this doesn't happen. We're just a handful of people, and wow, 50,000 petitions. Thank you, everybody across the state, everybody who helped us here to have our voices heard. So quickly, any questions that you have for the group, let us know. And of course, all of us are available afterwards for one-on-one interviews. Yes, ma'am.
Who exactly is Upland LLC, and why was this such a secret? Why don't we know who they are?
Great question. All we know is probably what you know. They were established back in February, and we don't know who the parties particular are with Upland LLC. Like I said, I have reached out to their representation that sent the letter out yesterday withdrawing their application to sit down with their group. So, but that's all I know. We've been.
Do you know what caused them to pull their submission?
Nope, just I know what you know as far as the letter that saying because of the upheaval from the community, they believe it was misinformation. I don't necessarily agree with that, but that was the reason in the letter. We know what you guys know.
Did you expect for them to withdraw the request?
I didn't know what to expect. It was interesting. We had a lot of people, and all of us, myself included, trying to figure out who was behind it. And I appreciate the research, and we've got a team that will still look at that. But it was very important. I used to be an air traffic controller, so I got back on the radar, and that's what I was telling everybody. I appreciate this over here, but our focus is this. We got a 6-day time clock ticking, and our focus is getting in front of the ARC, getting them the information, and then potentially the governor and the cabinet. So we needed to stay focused on that. Yes, sir.
Wouldn't the LLC have to own that other acreage to offer a land swap? Wouldn't they have to own that?
So the 17 pages of supplemental paperwork says that the owner does have 104 point something acres adjacent here in St. Johns County to that land. So it would appear that that would be that parcel that I'm very focused on sitting with that group from the Upland LLC to see if the state can go and purchase that land for Guana and keep it under state from now on. Yes, sir.
It's no secret that Florida is a very private property owner state, from the local level all the way up to the state level. I mean, the proposal for developing on the state parks came directly from Governor DeSantis' office, and we see this all the way up to the national level with proposals under the new administration to potentially develop or drill for natural resources on public lands. I know that there is opposition to these projects individually. Do you think there is truly an appetite at the state legislature level to codify in legislation changes that would prevent things like this from happening on a macro scale rather than individual pop-up whack-a-mole big protests? You know what I mean?
100% yes. You noticed it with our vote. It was 100% unanimous across the aisle to the state land bill that we passed. It hasn't made its way to the governor's desk yet, but it unanimously was signed to stop development in any state parks. And I assure you, I'm not somebody who sits around eating bonbons. I am focused. This will be one of my 7 bills. We will button up as much as we can to not have this happen. This is slightly different, so in my opinion, this was a workaround on the spirit of that law. Falls under Florida Statute 253.42, Paren 4, Paren A. It's about land swapping. So in my opinion, to give you a quick focus. That law was put into place because Florida wanted to expand their conservation land without spending money. So if you owned 100 acres of timberland and you're adjacent to 100 lands of state-owned conservation land, you could request a land swap and own the 100 acres of timber that the state had, but you could only continue to keep it as timber, not develop condos or anything like that. In exchange, the state would own your 100 acres as far as a conservation easement. Both the owner and the state now own 200 acres. Has to be contiguous. It has to make sense on both sides. In my strong opinion, you are not exchanging 600 acres for 3,000 acres in 4 different counties. That is not the spirit of the legislation, and I've talked to the original author of this legislation as well. So we will be addressing that very specifically in the legislation, along with what I perceive as this workaround, and the 6 days notice is ridiculous. Yes, sir.
On that note, what are some additional ways Florida's constituents can help lobby for this kind of legislation?
Thank you. That's a great question. So please continue to keep up with Florida Audubon, with your county commissioners, your city mayors, and myself, my office. Give us your names and addresses, give us your emails, whatever contact got you to this point. As we move forward to make sure this doesn't happen again, we absolutely are going to need to continue to have the lobbying efforts of the community. Yes?
The Upland LLC attorney in a letter last night said that it never intended to develop for commercial or community development purposes. Do you think there were other development purposes it had intended?
So my state house staff reached out to the DEP because the Florida statute says they can exchange it for all or partial amount of the land, and they would not say how much was going to be developed. They said we had to wait till tomorrow's presentation. So we don't know, and until I sit down with them, they didn't divulge it in the information, and we just don't know. I'm feeling a little lightheaded, so I'm going to ask if we can go one-on-one, and thank you so much for coming out.